you?
I'm perfect, bro. I'm happy, man. I'm surrounded by good art. I get to be here with you.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? Very proud of you. Where are we right now? What's the name of it?
So right now we're at Joan Hisoka Healing Arts Gallery at the Smith Center on U Street, and this is where my body of work, Transcendence of Duality, is located. And so the work was really inspired by just thoughts of what it means to transcend the realm of duality, good and bad, fear and love, and just really kind of have this perspective of operating with the neutrality and really see things as this either aligns with my path or it doesn't. And then just kind of charting the spiritual growth and development that comes with that journey and that perspective of understanding things from that perspective. So,
And so it was life that inspired the work, or was it the work that started to allow you to see how your life is reflected in it?
A little bit of both. So I would say generally I had certain ideas that I wanted to express through the work, but as you work and you kind of get into flow state and you're able to kind of unravel hidden parts of your psyche or your consciousness through the work, it can kind of speak to you and teach you certain things that maybe you just weren't conscious of. And so the work does a great job of bringing certain things that are unconscious to the conscious mind and allow you to deal with them and kind of observe them and then grow from integrating whatever those things are. But generally, I definitely study a lot. And so the study drives the practice. It drives, I guess, the questions that I would ask through certain bodies of work and through certain artworks that I want to explore. And so it's a bit of both.
They work well with each other. No, and I asked that because it feels very much alive, you know, and it's inspiring to see work that comes from a mindset and a philosophy, but it doesn't feel stale.
Yeah.
And this is a very unique style and process you have. What is this? Can you tell us a little bit about your style? Is it a name for it?
Yeah, so no name currently. It's still, I would say, very new, although I've been working in this way for years on end. So I would consider myself a mixed media artist, and so I use crystals, glass, oil paint, resin, and so you're kind of seeing a lot of these different materials being used in unison. One of my goals for this body of work was to really focus on the balance in which I use different materials and the way that I use them and what am I expressing when I'm using a certain material and how can I kind of master the expression of whatever it is I'm conveying through the art, through these different materials. And so I really tried to play around with it a lot through working through this body of work. And so that's kind of what you're looking at. And so there are different artworks where you will see more of one material used than another. However, I try to keep a certain balance of how I use different materials. And I really look at it as just a language. And what tools do I have in my toolbox when it comes to my language and how I'm expressing myself as an artist, as a creator. So,
And in language, you know, I love that. And as a mixed media artist, I completely understand that. Would you say that you have your own style? Like, do you feel you've gotten to that point, or your own language?
I would definitely say my own language. I would say, like a baby, my language is growing over time, and so I think it will continue to mature and grow in the sense of how I express things and how effective I am at expressing certain things through the mastery and control that I have with the materials that I'm using. But definitely a language.
Yeah, and it definitely seems like you've reached a certain level of mastery in your journey. And before we get into this beautiful work that I'm very excited to talk about, if you could just give us just a little bit of an introduction of how did you get here today and be able to get to this level in relationship with your craft? What has your artistic journey been to get to this point?
Yeah, so unlike most artists, I did not start off being an artist like as a child. I would say that I drew a lot as a child. I was kind of into anime and things of that nature. And so that was like the driving force of like why I would even pick up a pencil. But as I grew, I kind of departed from that and I was just more interested in sports and girls and things of that nature. So it wasn't until I broke my wrist in high school playing football that I sort of picked up art again. And I would say that was like sort of the first time that my path was really redirected into this new thing that I knew nothing of. And so going into college, I was going for psychology, and I was thinking of being a lawyer, and so I was kind of into that, and but still very interested in art and where it could take me, and still playing around with that. And so I decided to change my major, I believe my freshman year, spring of my freshman year, to art, not knowing anything of art, how to make a living in it. I just decided to pursue it. And so that kind of worked out, and I was able to go to SAIC from there, learned a lot. I was exposed to a lot more, and that's really when I started to blossom as an artist and really focus on expressing my ideas through art and not just painting pretty pictures. And so having access to the museum, just the people there, the faculty was very helpful in the sense of really pushing us to become very articulate and very expressive when it comes to expressing certain ideas that you have, kind of story building and things of that nature, and really kind of bringing your audience into what you're doing.
And so even background of how we got to know each other, we both went to the Art Institute of Chicago.
Right.
I met you at the very end when I was leaving. And I just remember you were such a fresh breath of air because you were different than all the other artists there.
Right.
I had a couple of years to assimilate to the new art room because I came from HBCU as well. But no, that's beautiful. What is, and hearing you say what you just said, what's the difference between the man I met then and the man that you are now?
I would say the man that you knew then was a good draftsman. Like I knew how to paint pretty pictures. I was still very expressive. I just had not tapped into how, I hadn't quite tapped into how to express myself as an artist and really put the research behind my work and what I was doing. I had not mastered that yet. And so that took years of just life and maturing and kind of going through some things to really be able to express certain aspects of my life, my different experiences, and put that into the work, allow it to drive the work as inspiration, and sort of use it to express higher ideals. And so that took time. That took a bit of, just really maturing as a young man and kind of going through certain things to see that my life and my art was not separate. I had to join the two and allow the two to kind of interplay off each other.
Right. And that takes time. That is something that doesn't happen in the early part of your artistic journey. You got to live life. And so that's a very mature place to have reached. And the work here, one of the reasons that I'm attracted to it, and it's obvious, is it seems vulnerable. This work seems not superficial, not like you are interested or hiding behind talking about the idea of something, but you utilize your actual wife in the work as your muse a lot. It seems personal. Some of these pieces seem like pieces that you perhaps would have just made for yourself, and it's between you and your wife, and it. And so, tell me about just the kind of exposure and the process that got you to the point where you were open to being this intimate with your viewers.
Yeah, I would say that took a while. It takes a while, as a man to be vulnerable in that sense, and to even include anything about my personal life in the work. So it took a minute for me to actually realize that, hey, I am an artist. This is what great artists do. You have to be vulnerable. You have to share, bits of your life with the world if you feel they can benefit from the expression of that. And so that's exactly what I did. So I kind of share a bit of my spiritual journey and just how I've developed as a man mentally, physically, and spiritually over the years through the work, in hopes that the conversations that it will spark will help and inspire other people as well. And so I use my wife in the work because I see a lot of myself in her. And so I learn a lot about myself through her. And so same thing with painting myself. I've never painted myself before. Not sure why. It's just something that I never did, and I think it does. It seems simple, but it does take a bit more vulnerability to kind of paint and explore yourself Because like we spoke about earlier, the works speak to you.
Right.
And so what is it saying to you when you look at photos of yourself? And I would definitely say it's been transformative painting myself, you know.
Well, it's durational. You know, when we see these works, and this tapping into a conversation we had before of that question that people ask you, you know, they assume that when you finish doing a body of work, you want to break and don't you want to rest?
Yeah.
And it's actually the opposite because, you know, as you're painting your wife or yourself, you're painting the same thing day in and day out for like months. So like that is a real commitment when you say, I'm going to paint this. And so with this being your first time, really capturing your wife and capturing yourself, what thoughts were going on through your head as you're just painting yourself every day?
Yeah, well, I would say specifically there were days when she would piss me off. And it's like, I still have to work on this huge painting you for this body of work. It doesn't stop, but it really reinforced the idea of unconditional love and what that means. And not that you don't love someone that you're with because they anger you. But it did allow me to kind of look at it with a different perspective. And it's like, well, why would I stop working on it just because we had a bad day? Or she got on my nerves today. Like, nothing changes.
Or to change the painting altogether.
Right.
So, you're that mad. I gotta, I'm not painting you no more.
Yeah, so it just really reinforced a lot of life lessons that I've instilled in myself in terms of just really embodying unconditional love, learning what it is to love another person, and understanding that it is a service. It's not for your pleasure or things of that nature. It's really to serve that person. And you sign up for that for the rest of your life if you truly take those vows serious. And so that's sort of how I look at my spiritual practice or you know, just spiritual development, is that this is something that you can't run from. You shouldn't turn away from when it gets hard, but you face it when it gets hard, and you learn more about yourself. And it's the same thing in relationships. You know, it's good to take a break from people every once in a while, but a lot of times it's just you may bump heads with someone simply because they're reflecting to you an aspect of yourself that you haven't healed or that you haven't dealt with.
Did that go into the title of your show and what the?
Absolutely, and that ties it back to Transcendence of Duality and kind of understanding that integrating these different aspects of, you know, your subconscious into your everyday waking reality and your conscious mind, that's a journey, and it takes a bit of work, and it's not always easy, but it often leads to a lot of growth and maturity on our part and allows us to be better people and to build a better character. So,
okay. So one thing that I continue to hear you say, keep using this word spiritual. That seems to be a big part of you. You talked about it in seriousness when you spoke about your practice and your technique from a painterly sense. You spoke about it with your relationship with your wife and relationship with yourself. And so, you know, let's hop into it, right? Who is the spiritual you? Who is that person?
I would say me specifically is the person that's very concerned with growth, a person who's very concerned with knowledge of self, understanding more about myself, and really striving to get to this point of oneness with my creator, or my higher self, you know, whatever you want to call it based on your religion or your spiritual practice. But this deeper part of yourself that is connected to the Most High God. And so that's how I look at it. And as far as just spiritual growth is concerned, we implement certain aspects of our character in order to really maximize the growth in that area. And so it's just like what I talked about with my wife. Certain people will anger you or, you know, drive you to a point of frustration. But it's really just to show you an aspect of yourself that you need to deal with. She's not really the one angering you or your child or your student or whoever it is. It's just something that the Most High may be trying to get you to deal with that you aren't seeing, whether it's because you're too busy or you just you're concerned with bills or whatever the case is. We sort of miss these life lessons that God is trying to throw at us, and so they often turn into altercations. They often turn into resistance and things of that nature. And so my job in just seeing the synchronicity and not synchronicity, but the patterns of those things over time in my life, I recognize that these are things that need to be dealt with. And so when I talk about spirituality or my spiritual practice, a big part of that is being self-aware and understanding why certain things are happening in my reality. And what do I need to do to change certain things in order to be more in line with my highest good or my highest path for the most growth in this life.
And so following that conversation, in my own curiosity, one of my favorite pieces in the show, I have a couple, but one of the ones that is the most haunting and memorable is this piece right here. And I wanted you to continue speaking, but I wanted you to put it in context of the work.
Yeah.
What is this piece talking about in relationship to the duality and the reflective aspect that you were talking about?
Right. So this piece was inspired by...
Well, what's it called first?
This piece is called... I'm blanking on the name of the piece. I believe Connection to Higher Self. And so this piece was very much about aligning with your spirit. And so this would be her soul. On the other side is a depiction of her spirit. And so it's sort of a bridge or a connection, like her connecting with her spirit in order to hear and adhere to guidance coming from her higher self. And so that's what it's reflective of in this work. And so I think that's something that's critical for everybody when we talk about spiritual growth and just maturing in that sense, is being able to hear your inner voice and what it looks like for you to connect with that. And it may look different for each individual person. For her, it looks like prayer and meditation and things of that nature. For somebody else, you may need to get into nature and kind of connect that way. Whatever it is for you, it could be basketball, it could be a sport that you love,
right.
But it allows you to kind of tap into this flow state where you can easily hear your inner voice, and then from there, be still and adhere to the guidance that it's giving you in order to operate on your path more effectively.
And I truly believe that. And I love to take rhetoric or philosophy and challenge it to have to contend against contemporary times, right? And so I truly believe, and this is why art is important as a tool, that inner conversation and that inner voice is more needed now than ever.
Right.
And I'm curious, you being an artist and a creator, how is what you're talking about applied to today's time on a global level?
I think we live in a time where we're flooded with a lot of information, but there's a lack of wisdom and discernment. And so this process, what I'm talking about, is connecting to yourself. And there's a lot of different words for it, again, depending on your spiritual background. Some people will call it the higher self or the Holy Spirit. Whatever you call it, it is a higher aspect of you that is guiding you based on your path and what you came to do in this life. That's what I believe. And so I think it's critical for people of this time to really get in tune with that, because we need wisdom and we need guidance and we need a spirit of truth leading us, not just information that we're getting off Google or from AI or Chat GPT. It needs to be a specific guidance for your specific life and what you came to do. And that looks different for everybody.
So you feel like everyone has their own individual
100%,
purpose?
absolutely.
Do we all know this?
I think a lot of people are ignorant to it, and I think that's a big issue in today's society. I think depression, anxiety, all of these things are at an all-time high. Not because we're so smart or, we have access to all of this information, but I think it's just a discernment of what you need to guide your life and what are you listening to based on who you are and what you came to do and your background and your issues and your traumas that you've dealt with. You need a specific set guidance, and this is your guidance system that can speak to you, that you can tap into, that I think would alleviate a lot of the world's issues today. It's just something that we get away from. Whether it's because we're getting away from religion, we're getting away from different spiritual practices, different ancient practices that we once held or treasured, these things can just kind of subside over generations, whether it's due to a pleasure-seeking generation, whether it's just due to overstimulation and dependence on technology. These things have a way of sort of dumbing us down to a degree that we can't even adhere to our own guidance system. We don't understand ourselves. We don't understand ourselves in relation to the source from which we come, and we have no idea how to tap into it or if that's even a possibility.
Right.
And I see that as a big issue in today's society.
And that's actually quite a mouthful. I mean, it's profound. And so what I'm going to do, I've also asked you where you are at in your artistic journey, with being as vulnerable as you are to have these conversations. And so with those topics in mind, my next question is, what is the role of the artist in all of this? What is your role as an artist in all this? What is your role in that spiritual path? Because you believe that you have a purpose. And how does this all tie together into who you are as an artist in today's time?
Yeah, I think it's easier for artists to kind of tap into that guidance system because we are so intuitive and creative and open-minded. It's just a bit easier for us to kind of tap into that. However, I think it's very critical that we use it as a tool to express certain ideals and use our art as a platform to talk about bigger conversations, talk about the things that we're talking about now, to bring more awareness to people and inspire people to kind of do their own research and their own exploration into these different ideals. So you don't have to believe me. You can go and read about some of the things that I'm talking about and see how it applies to you. What are some different practices that you can use to maybe sort of implement these things in your life to see the sort of growth and maturity and development that you want to see in your own specific life, in your own path, whatever it is that you do. And so I think as an artist, it's critical to, like you said earlier, tie these different things that we're exploring into modern society and what's going on in today's time, and sort of inspire people and really communicate in a innovative way that can inspire people to kind of explore some of these things for themselves.
Very well said. As we head to the end of this, and if we do have any people that may have any questions, you want to start warming those up now. I wanted to get back to the work, and so one of my favorite pieces in the show. Once again, I have many for different reasons. But this piece is very interesting to me because I had the privilege of watching you prepare for this show. I had the privilege of watching you in the studio, crunch mode for the last few months, super focused, locked in, right? And I've seen these pieces, and then I came to the show and I saw this piece. And I hadn't seen this piece, and you told me that you had finalized this specific piece in the last couple days into the show which I was kind of intrigued by that because it was the exact opposite of what I've known you to be. You're a very calculated person. You are a little bit of a perfectionist in terms of the outcome you want. So to make such an audacious move, it's really, it's ambitious to pull. You have a whole show, and the day before the show happens, you start a brand new piece, and then just put it out to the public on your first solo show. Tell me about this piece.
So this is a prime example of listening to your intuition, your guidance system. All night, I battled with two voices: the voice that was telling me to push and to kind of explore and be free with the way that you're painting, the amount of paint that you're using, and kind of the way that you're going about things with this artwork. And then there was a voice saying, Blake, you're messing this up. You need to stop. I was listening to because my wife told me while working on this, I really like the direction you were going in before. What did you do? You're messing the piece up. And so that's a prime example of just kind of learning to tune outside voices out and listen to your own inner guidance system. Because while she may have been trying to give me good advice, she is not the end-all be-all when it comes to what she can see in her perspective. And so it's very critical that you be able to tap into your own guidance system and listen to what it's saying and how it's steering you. And all night, it was steering me to push, to kind of explore. Don't worry about the outcome. Just, be free and expressive. And then that's what I did with this piece. I didn't think too much.
Can you notice a difference in this piece from the rest of the work?
I can, because I have a plan with every piece that I go into, and every piece is obviously backed by these ideas that I want to explore. However, there are times when I'm working on the work that I just tap in the flow state and I kind of forget the outcome. And I'm just working in the present and I'm allowing things to come as they come. Each piece goes through that process, but there are artworks that energy is more prevalent in the process, and this was one of them. And so I think that is the big difference between this piece and a lot of the others, and there are others. But I would say this was a piece where I actually listened throughout the entire process and took big risks, and I didn't allow my ego to kind of interfere in that process. And that's the battle that I'm really talking about today. One of the battles is just learning to listen to your inner guidance system and not your ego or any other outside voice that's trying to steer you. And,
so if I can deduce what you're saying, it sounds like with the other works you were trying. You had an outcome that you were trying to do. You wanted to be fully in control. You were going off of what you know, versus this one you let go. You had to face your fears. You was down and trusted yourself to land wherever you're gonna land because you have that kind of relationship with your artistic practice. You didn't even listen to the your normal people around you. And it seems what I'm hearing is courage. How did that, now that the dust is settled and the experiment is over and you're able to see the end product of different ways of going about it, what has all this taught you?
Again, I think for me it just reinforced, always listen to your inner voice. Don't listen to the deadline, don't listen to whoever you think loves you, who's trying to steer you, who may have your best interest but just can't see the full picture. Don't listen to any of it. Always trust it and listen and adhere to it throughout the entire process. I'm always listening to it throughout the process, but there are times where we can kind of dissolve fear, and then we're going without the brakes at that point, full throttle. And I think that's what you see in this piece. And so that's what I think every artist should strive for, whether you do music, dance, visual art, whatever it is to really be able to tap into that flow state and let go and not allow fear or any other outside voice to dictate your actions.
And real quick, what I want to do, sometimes artists, we can be very polished, and there's been this overall veil between the art world and the public for some time, on a general sense, but specifically even the Black community sense. There's always this hands off, I don't know what you're doing, it's mystery. And so if you could take your cool off for 2 seconds, and let's be a little bit transparent. As an artist, what was difficult about this, from an emotional sense to the physical to just the restraints, and you had to initiate this whole thing from an entrepreneur sense as well. What were the challenges, and just talk a little bit about that.
I would say one of the challenges is just being consistent even in chaos. When I say chaos, everyday things that will come up in life that are kind of straying you off your responsibilities and what you know you need to do in order to get this thing done, which was this body of work. There's also fear. So there was fear of expressing certain things through the art. There was fear of maybe having certain conversations, just different fears that would come up that I would notice throughout the process that I had to dissolve. And then there was also listening to that inner voice, because sometimes we don't want to listen to it. Sometimes it could be guiding us to go a certain direction with the work, and we're saying, no, we want to do X, Y, and Z. However, you still get to this point where you had to listen and do it anyway. You just prolonged it and took longer. You took the longer route. So there were a lot of challenges, a lot of things that I learned for sure through creating this body of work. But I think the biggest thing is just always having the courage to be vulnerable, to express your truest self, to be authentic all the way through, and allow that authenticity to guide the work.
One of my favorite quotes always has been, may you never not find yourself expressing the fullest potential of your genius, right?
Yeah.
And so the last question I'll close off with, I know we've had conversations, and we've had conversations of that idea of always advise that you should get whatever ideas you want to get out, or the things that you think is the coolest things you want to do, hurry up and do them joints, so that you can then expand your mind to greater ideas.
Exactly.
Right, and move on to bigger things that you wouldn't have perceived as possible because you were still stuck on the ideas you thought that were big, right?
Right.
So now that you've done your show, you've had your first official solo show in Washington, D.C. that I think was very successful in terms of your work. You have reached a certain point in your spiritual journey and your family journey. What's next on your path? If there is anything.
Yeah, I would say what's next is just doing it at a higher level and using all of the knowledge that I gained from this process to apply it to the next. And so, same thing, just, a higher level, being able to execute at a higher level, being able to express at a higher level, being able to embody more of my true authentic self and express that in the work.
Would you mind being a little bit more specific that what you mean higher level? What does that look like for you?
I think for me, it looks like getting into some sculpture. I think it looks like getting into a bit of animation, just exploring my ideas through different avenues that I may have not wanted to risk with this specific show, and really kind of taking the leap and playing around in different mediums with different ways of expressing different ideas.
Nice.
And, the future.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a thing that, again, a lot of artists may struggle with, is just kind of, we have all of these ideas, but how do we express them? How do we go about them? What if it's not successful? What if we can't execute it? And so just really getting through the barrier of worrying about the outcome of how things will happen and actually just jump into it and do it. And, if it fails, it fails. If it succeeds, it succeeds. But at the end of it, you would have learned something to move forward and to be better for the next time. So
you're moving in the direction of more freedom and fearless, like the restraints are coming off.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, congratulations to that, brother.
Appreciate it.
I do want to just open the floor up for anybody that may have any questions or comments for the artist. No pressure at all.
I got one.
Yes, sir.
So you were saying how you sort of kind of let yourself go in the flow state for that last piece behind you.
Right.
Whereas the rest of them kind of had a plan.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself doing, I don't know if freestyle is the right word, but do you see yourself kind of sort of going into flow state and just seeing where it takes you? Do you see yourself taking that path more in the future? Or is that something you'll probably just do every once in a while and kind of stick to your, okay, I have a goal in mind, so let me just, push until I reach the goal that I want?
Yeah, I think a bit of a balance of both. I mean, you need direction and a plan to kind of guide and steer what you're doing.
For sure.
However, you absolutely need to tap into that flow state to really just be fearless and create the absolute best work, and a work that's coming from a higher place. I mean, our job as artists, we're like alchemists. We turn something into nothing. So we want to pull an idea from our mind and make it tangible and manifest it in the physical. And so for that, I think you have to have a balance of having a plan, having some structure, having some research to go behind what you're doing. However, you do need to balance that with being able to tap into the flow state. I think for me, it's just about being more fearless when it's time to move in that direction. Right. And not allowing anything to sort of challenge that process, and I think that takes mastery, that takes time. However, I'm at a point now where I feel like I'm at the point where I'm mastering the balance of the two. And so just kind of balancing the structure with being able to tap in the flow state and just let go and create whatever comes to mind. Right. And so to answer your question, I would say, for sure a balance, but we're definitely leaning on the side of just fearlessness and and really operating in that realm of flow a lot more.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's not to say that, you know, because you can clearly go into flow state and have a plan in mind.
Yeah.
Like, you could do that. You know, I was just like kind of going off what you said. It's just like, okay, I was just kind of like seeing where the painting took you for that last one. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I understand what you mean. I mean, it's very much like a freestyle. You use the word freestyle, but that's all you're doing when you're freestyling is you're just flowing. That's literally what we call it. And so, yes, for sure, I want to get to a point where I'm flowing more in my work and just kind of allowing whatever comes to come and whatever wants to be expressed through me, just be a medium for that expression. So yes, absolutely.
Do you see a difference in this piece versus?
If you had told me that was the last one made, I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Yeah. And I think I do it in all of them. It was just very obvious in this one because it was a struggle the entire night with hearing the two different voices. And so I had to acknowledge, like, okay, this is what I need to do every time, is just let go and listen to my inner self, whatever is telling me to do. And like we talked about, just kind of diminishing that fear and just really being able to let go and be free in that process. So,
Wonderful.
any more questions from the audience? Yeah.
You mentioned earlier about exploring different methods like, you know, sculpture, animation, things like that.
Yeah.
Are you looking to explore the similar themes in those different methods, or trying to see when you get to those different, you know, methods, are you going to see what comes to your, you know, soul then, or what comes to mind?
Oh, 100%. I think I'll still explore the same themes, the same goals. I think they're very broad. And so I don't think there'll be an issue of not being able to have the same type of conversations and be able to steer the conversations in the way that I want them to go. I'll have more room to do that more freely because I'm not being pigeonholed to one medium. And I'm using a lot of mediums in the artwork. However, it is still on canvas, whether it be wood or, you know, whatever the case. It is a two-dimensional thing. When you allow yourself to be open to creating three-dimensionally, you allow yourself to be open to creating, whether it be animation or digital or, you know, photography, is just a different realm of being able to express something. You have more freedom. I would say it that way. And so I think the idea, well, the mode of expression or the vehicle for the idea would just be more effective because I'm choosing it not based off a limitation, but based off whatever it is I'm trying to express. This may go better as a sculpture, so I'm going to sculpt this, and that's my intention. Or this may be better as, you know, a short film, and that's how I want to express it. And this will be showed at the gallery or whatever have you. Just being open to more avenues of expression.
Fantastic. Any other last remarks or questions? Wonderful.
I was curious about when he said he's gonna go into animation because I'm curious, how would you display that? Because in my mind, I kind of think like, okay, that's just social media. Someone's gonna show their, you know, the waterfall that they animated, bird flying, kid doing a backflip, whatever.
Yeah.
But would you look for a space like this to display animation?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily. And so again, that just goes back to really being free and not kind of allowing different structures to dictate how you're expressing. I would just do it, and then I would find the venue for, you know, what would be best to display this thing that I want to do, or what would be best to present this project that I have that I'm expressing through a film, or, you know, maybe a what do you call it, an installation or whatever have you.
Okay.
So,
Dope.
yeah.
Well, my last question, and I like to leave on a more, you know, fun note. Sometimes artists, we could be all serious, but it's about your inner child, you know.
Yeah.
From a technical standpoint of the person who is literally touching the work, you know, every centimeter of every canvas very intimately, what was one of your favorite moments on any of these canvases that just felt really good to do? It was just fun and you thoroughly enjoyed it.
I would say for sure working with the crystal pieces. Any piece that has glass in it, I absolutely love making those just because it's fun. I'm listening to music, I'm dancing while I'm doing it, I'm just free. And it's super fun, and there's usually a time restriction because certain things may dry within a given time frame. And so there's this idea of like, okay, I have to get it done now. And so I'm just more focused on what I'm doing and there's no distractions because it's not like I can stop and come back to it. And so I think that adds a bit of fun to it. I think not knowing exactly how it will come out, but the permanence that it involves is also very fun. So for sure working with glass or crystals at any given point in the work is always the funnest to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Blake, it has been an absolute pleasure.
All right, man.
Yes, sir. Congratulations on your first debut
Appreciate
solo
it.
art show. Any last remarks to close us out?
No, I would like to thank the director of the gallery for having me. I would like to thank John Hisoka for obviously hosting the works for the duration. These works will be up until the end of June. So there will be other programming, so stay posted for that. I'll be posting that on all social media platforms, as well as the website of the gallery. They will post anything moving forward. If anybody wants to get in touch about any of the works that you see, you can contact me or Miss Lisa, and all of my information is on my website. That could be scanned at the front. So
Fantastic. Well, we can all give a round of applause for Blake's exhibition. Fantastic. Thank you.